So before I begin, I request you all to humor me and close your eyes. We're going to go on a little journey through sound. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Geshtu Khervan Khal Dukdalar Bashinda So in less than 45 seconds, we went from the tropical plains of South India to the sandy deserts of the Middle East. Even though these two pieces of music that I just sang are separated by over 10 centuries, they're united in the idea of what devotion embodies. They're united in the idea of the melodic philosophies that they speak about. What we understand as the raga in South India and what the Middle East understands as maqam. It's this shared ancestry of sound, images, and music is what I want to showcase and project through my cultural diplomacy project, The Dialogues with the Divine. As a singer of sacred music from India, I was faced with an essential and an important existential question. What is the role of sacred music, the tradition of sacred musics across the world in a modern, contemporary society? What's its role in a religiously polarized world today? And after much thought, I felt that the best strategy was to use these relics of the past as ammunition for cultural diplomacy and use them as vehicles to bind people rather than divide them on the basis of religion, color, creed, and so on. In December 2013, while I was in the Harvard Medical School Neuroprotection Research Laboratory, I opened up the skull of a white albino rat and induced an artificial stroke. And bizarrely enough, the rat seemed to be humming a melody as if he was soothing himself through the experiment. And my coworker, who was clearly high on the vapors of isoflurane that was floating around in the surgical chamber, said, "Oh my God, that's what I call a musical stroke." And I said, "Whoa." It's as if, as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher emerges. In that instant, with his play of words, my whole life flashed in front of me in an instant. It was very clear to me that I was not satisfied just studying strokes in rats, musical or otherwise, and that I was truly interested in studying the culture of musical strokes of many folks. I was interested in studying the cognition of musical strokes. I was interested in the neurobiology, the neuropsychobiology of musical strokes, and everything in between. And it was clear to me that I was interested in the alchemy of sound. And without further ado, I signed on those dotted lines. I gave up a stable paycheck and the promise of tenure. And I gave up my job and enrolled at the New England Conservatory of Music for a master's degree in music, where now my lab was comprised of beings who were having many, many, many beautiful strokes, from bebop to blues to the classical. And in the same year, I also founded the Carnatic Alchemy Project. The word Carnatic is the indigenous word for South Indian classical music, and as I was clearly interested in innovating, agitating, cogitating, and everything in between, I thought I would use the Carnatic Alchemy Project as a platform for connecting communities, for creating transformative experiences through music. And so we've explored new music. We've enticed composers in the area to engage with South Indian classical music, which is a fairly lesser-known music given the mainstream arena. We've explored new contexts. We've gone from the chamber to the orchestral to the ridiculous. And we've gone to new spaces. We have explored yoga centers. We've explored juvenile detention centers. We've taken this to assisted living centers and adult education programs in libraries. And with this new project, the Dialogues with the Divine, I wanted to take it up a notch. I wanted to take old music, which was composed in old spaces, and reinterpret them in a new dynamic and put them back in the old spaces that they came from. So the Dialogues with the Divine had our first tryst with reality on March 1st through the Boston Jewish Music Festival right here on Beacon Street at the Temple Ohavei Shalom. I joined a Jewish cantor and a Jewish congregation to create music that explored the joint ancestry of Indo-Jewish traditions. I sang in Hebrew, and he sang in Sanskrit, and we thematically linked the many concepts that are shared between Hinduism and Judaism. And perhaps the highlight of that event was that I had trained a bunch of Indian American kids to sing a Yiddish song in a South Indian raga that they were familiar with. And at the end of the concert, after receiving a standing ovation, I had a 6-year-old come to me and say, "Oh my God, I did not know it was cool to be an Indian American." And isn't that how we all want to feel? Isn't that how we all want to feel, where we are connected to who we are, we're proud of our heritage, but we're also connected to each other as a large whole. Excuse me. And isn't that how we all want to feel, where our tradition and our culture is not a burden of the past? It's not something that's an obstacle to actually participating and engaging in a multicultural society. Instead, it's a wonderful springboard that offers us many, many, many tools to engage in a plural, multicultural society. Because whether you're singing a piyut in Hebrew, or a kirtan in Hindi, or a gospel in English, the mindset of prayer is the same. The neuropsychobiology of transcendence, of mindfulness, is universal. And perhaps I agree that we have complicated histories, and we cannot erase all the boundaries in the world map, but we do have a choice to lead with what we want into the future and not be shackled by the imageries and prejudice of the past. So, in conclusion, I think a modern solution to an ancient problem is that perhaps we should harness the power of music to elevate our consciousness, to take us from a beautiful past to a mindful present. And perhaps if we could stop just for a little bit and realize that we do not have to disconnect from each other to connect to the divinity that's there in all of us. We do not have to disconnect from each other to connect to the humanity within. Thank you.